Hi, welcome to Overworked Linux Admin. I'm your host, Zach, and I will be going through the Red Hat certifications with you today. I am a Linux Junior Systems Administrator, and I am studying for my RHCSA. So, by doing these videos, I'm hoping that myself and others like me can get some more in-depth hands-on practice doing with this exam. We are going to be using the RHCSA/RHCE Red Hat Linux Certification Study Guide 6th edition. We're going to go chapter by chapter, and that's about it. We aren't going to be using Red Hat, of course. That's entirely too expensive. Instead, we're going to focus on CentOS 6.3, and in that regard, we have CentOS 6.3 here. So we're going to dive right into Chapter 1, Installation. There are a number of different installation options. You can install from the DVD, you can install from the network, you can do a USB key, or you could do something like Puppet or Satellite or Spacewalk. In this case, we're going to be focusing on a more manual, hands-on installation of Linux. What we're going to be focusing on here, so there's a few different ISOs that you can use. You can use the full ISO, what you see here, and that's a few gigs. I think it's 1 or 2 gigs here. Then you have the minimal ISO, which is around 200 megs, and it's a quick install. However, it lacks a lot of base tools like bind utils, wget, telnet, etc., etc. You can do a net install. It's even smaller at 100 megs. It requires a network to be configured and set up, and a URL to the source image, and then it will do a full install across the network. Or you could do a live CD. A live CD is a self-contained OS. It's around 700 megs. You can install it locally. It can be used to do test installs, recover systems, do boot into memory tests, and recover corrupt drives. So in that case, let's get started. What we see here is we see the boot screen for CentOS 6.3. You can install or upgrade an existing system, install a system with a basic video driver. That's if you're on a system that has less than 512 megs of RAM. You can rescue an install system. It's similar to the live CD. It boots up into a recovery mode. You can boot from a local drive, which in this case there is no operating system installed, so it's going to say operating system not found. And you can do a memory test, which this comes in handy when when you have like page table issues and you see that in your dmessage output. But that's something we're going to visit at a later date. Anyways, what we're going to do is we're going to go up to install or upgrade an existing system. Hit enter and wait for the image to load. And it's going to see all the dmessage output. This is just initializing the hardware, getting it all set up. Takes a little bit depending on your system. Alright, so we get to this prompt here. It says it sees a disk found, and it asks you if you want to test the media. You can test the media if you assume or suspect there is some type of corruption on the ISO or CD itself. However, this takes hours and it's a waste of time. So we're going to go ahead and skip. Just wait for that to load up again. Alright, running Anaconda. Alright, so it's going to boot up into a graphical user interface. If you're running anything less than, well, this is 2 gigs. If we're running anything less than that, I would assume there's going to be, it's going to drop back into a more basic graphical interface. So we got this. It's going to ask you for the language. You can see there's a number of different options here. um, a lot. And we're just going to focus on English. And it'll ask you the same for the keyboard, English again, unless you're feeling particularly, you know, expert. You can also do Dvorak, which let's just stick with English. And click next. Basic storage devices, or you could do a specialized storage device. That's if you have fiber channel over Ethernet, iSCSI, or ZFCP disks. This is more for enterprise SAN stuff. We're just gonna stick with basic local storage. And we got a 50 gig drive here that's stored in the VMDK. That's gonna discard any data. We're just gonna call this chapter 1.local. Alright, and you can go ahead and configure the network here if you have something set up. You go in here, you edit, and you can just set up static IP settings if you have them. We're just going to be doing DHCP for now, so there's no need for that. But that's where you would go to configure it. So we click next. It asks you for the time zone. I'm Eastern, so New York's fine for me. Give it a root password. Now we want definitely a complex password in most cases. In this case it's just a test, so we're just gonna put in password. Click next. Weak password, use anyway. Alright, so this is the most important part of the installation. You can use all the space up here and remove all the data. You can replace the existing Linux system. It'll remove all Linux created partitions, including those created by other distributions like Debian. Can shrink it. This is if you have any unused space from existing partitions, you can use it to create a new partition. You can use free space, which uses any existing free space for a new installation. So if you wanted to perhaps do a dual boot, or you can create a custom layout. Now notice when I clicked on custom layout, it went down here and it selected and grayed out review and modify partitioning layout. That's exactly what we're going to be doing here, and so we're going to go ahead and click next. So what we want to do is from here is there's a number of different strategies you can do here. The most common strategy is splitting up root /var and /home into 3 different partitions, and in this case we're going to do 3 different logical volumes because it's the easiest to expand if we ever run into any space issues. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a standard partition, and we're going to create boot because we're going to need a place to install grub and all the bootloader information. And I've seen this run into some problems here initially with it running out of space, so we're just going to give it 5 gigs, and that should be more than enough. And click OK, and then you want to create a swap. So quick, go to the file system and you tell it swap. Now with swap you usually want to do 2.5 times the memory. Swap is going to be used for basically it's a page file. So 2.5 times 2 gigs of memory gives us 5 gigs. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to give it, let's see here if I can select that, 5 gigs. And you click OK. And then that gives us roughly 40 gigs to mess around with. So from here we go and we create a physical volume. A logical volume manager of physical volume. Click create, and you want this to fill the maximum allowable size. And what this is going to do is this is going to create a volume group that is 40 gigs. So click OK, and go in here, and then you click edit. Oh, I'm sorry, I am mistaken. You go in here and you click create. It's been a long night. So go in here, click volume group, and I'm just going to keep it at VG chapter 1. And then what in here you want to add the logical volumes, and this is where we're going to do one for root, and we're going to call this, keep the naming standard fairly easy to understand, logical volume underscore root, and that's going to be, we're going to give that 10 gigs. And now if you wanted to encrypt it, if you have some type of compliance like HIPAA or SOX, you can go ahead and do that. But we'll be reviewing that in a later chapter. So we're going to go ahead and click OK, and do another one. We're going to do this for logical volume home, and we're going to give that another 1040. Click OK. Oh, did that backwards. LV home. Okay. And do another one, and this time it's /var, and we're going to get that 10 gigs. Alright, so it looks like we have a little bit left over. I usually like to put that into /root, because that's where I do a lot of work in general. So let's go here, we click edit this guy, and then we add 10236 to that, so that would be 2436. So click OK. Oh, sorry, 76. Like I said, it's been a long night. 76. Alright, click OK. So you can see here we have one volume group, and it's a total of 40 gigs. And then we have each different logical volume, /var, root, /home, at different sizes, 10 gigs, 20 gigs, 10 gigs. And then we have the physical drives here, the physical drive being SDA. That's how you know if it's an SDA, it's a SCSI drive. If it was HDA, that's an IDE drive. So that's how you can tell the difference. And you can see that it has 3 different partitions on here by SDA 1, 2, and 3, and the third one being the volume group. So I'm going to go ahead and click next. So it's going to ask you, it's going to destroy and format. You click format, and then you write the changes to the disk, and then you sit back, let it do its thing, and you just wait. Someone's messaging me. So let's see. This looks good. It's gonna install the bootloader on DevSD. You can click change device. You can change the BIOS boot order, but you just want to keep that all the defaults. So it's gonna load that, and you click next. It's gonna get the installation information. And then here's the cool part. You can go ahead and add any additional software repositories. You can modify the repository. And this allows you to select what kind of server you want. Like if you want a desktop, that would give you the GUI. You can select desktop. That'll install GNOME or KDE. If you got the minimal desktop, you have minimal basic server, which is just a server that just gives you the basic tools. You have a database server. It'll come preloaded with MySQL. Web server will come with Apache. Virtual host will come with KVM, and software development will come with all the Devil and GCC tools. So we're going to stick with basic server. You can add additional repositories if you know their names. Like if you wanted EPEL, you would type that in, EPEL, and that's the extended repo. You could put it here, HTTPS, Fedora, blah 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 blah, and that's going to be another chapter. So you can click customize now and click next, and you can see all the different packages that you can install. Like desktop, you can see desktop platform. You can look at the optional packages. You just click close. Alright, you can see like the load balancer, high availability, the different servers you can do, like a backup server. Ooh, that'd be pretty cool. Sys, directory, email, etc., etc. And it's pretty configurable from here, but like I said, we're going to be focusing on just a minimal basic server. So we're going to go select this guy and click next. It's going to check for all the dependencies. That's pretty straightforward because there's not going to be any weird issues doing that. It's going to start the installation process, and this is going to take a few minutes to say the least. Have 590 packages to load and install. So we're going to wait for a bit. Alright, and now that it's complete, we just go ahead and click reboot. Make sure that it doesn't boot into here. Just going to disconnect it for now. Okay. I'll connect it later. You go in here and it will load. If you hit escape, you can see it loading all the different packages and starting all the different services. Some of them will fail, most of them will be good. You can see there it looks at the logical volumes. No kdump, that's fine, we didn't configure it. It's going to start most of the system services. And we're in. And root, password is password, all lowercase. And we're in. And that concludes chapter 1 of Overworked Linux Admin. Thank you and have a good night.